So now that we've seen how to create a policy file, how to edit a policy file, how to apply the policy to our code, how we can both augment and override policy, we now need to take a look at how policy is applied to our code. There's another course in this series which covers class loading in depth, so I'm not going to go into the details here. If you see that course, you'll know that all Java code is loaded by a class loader. We also discussed the fact that most code is loaded by something called the URL class loader. Now, the URL class loader itself derives from something called a secure class loader. And it's the job of the secure class loader to attach information to the loaded classes that lets security happen, that lets these permissions take effect. So the secure class loader tags each loaded class with something called a code source. And the code source contains, as it might suggest, the source that the code was loaded from, so the location the code was loaded from. So how is this done? Well, the code base information is saved when we first load a class. Now, this isn't done directly. What happens is there's an object created of type protection domain, and it's the job of the protection domain to map this code base, the location the code is loaded from, into these policy permissions. And security aware code can retrieve this code base at any time. So the secure class loader has a defined class call which looks something like this. It takes the name of the class, the byte array that makes up the class, but it also takes a protection domain object. That protection domain object holds the code source, and it's the code source that holds the information about the code base. We can retrieve this anywhere in code by getting hold of the current class or of a class object, calling getProtectionDomain on that object, and then calling getCodeSource on that protection domain. So how is this used? So for example, we might want to use this code source and get all the permissions associated with this current code location. And we know those permissions are set using the policy object. So we can use this policy object to get these permissions from the code source. So we have code which looks something like this. So Java has a singleton policy object, and we can get that by calling policy.getPolicy. If we're in some method somewhere inside a class, we can call getClass to get hold of the current class object for our class. And then from that, we can call getProtectionDomain. So this gives us access to the protection domain object. From that, we can call getCodeSource, and that gives me access to the code source object. And then after that, I can pass the code source to the policy getPermissions call. And this will give me back a collection of all the permissions associated with this class. At this point, we can enumerate those permissions. So let's take a look at this code.